What's up, everybody? It's the Tabletop Tyrant, and as you have seen in the artwork, it is the Chaos Dwarves today. Chaos Dwarves have always been a faction of, like, something I love. I wasn't able and fortunate enough to get into it during the age of Forge World when it was still produced. I would have loved to get my grubby little hands on those minis. But there are tons of alternatives now that they are no longer supported, and we're going to talk about ways you can get into the army, how I kind of built my beginner list for it, and different options around how you, as a beginner, can build up into a Chaos Dwarf army and where we can get this stuff. First, a little snippet about the Chaos Dwarves. So Chaos Dwarves are really unique, right? One big difference you'll notice between them and their homies, the good dwarves, is the fact that they can use magic. And that's because during the time of, like, the chaos when the elves were fighting it off, these guys got cut off from their homies, and essentially the chaos winds ended up messing with them pretty rough, and they turned to the worship of Ishut and started sacrificing stuff to them, and I think kids and all this other stuff, and eventually they grew mutations and evil, and they found the way to bind demons into war machines, and also the ability to harness magic. Now that's obviously a really dirty and quick overview. There's another lore video I'm sure I've done earlier on the channel. If I find it, I'll throw it up in the top right. But I want to really talk about the army, because the army is super unique, and in my opinion, one of the more affordable armies to get into Warhammer the Old World if you're on a budget. And that is because the very first thing is there's free rules. Link in the description below if you want to take a glance for it yourself. If not, you can kind of find it on the Warhammer community page and the Legacies armies. So some of the things we're going to tackle, the model ranges available to you, how they handle on the tabletop, what I use, and where to start. So without further ado, let's get into this. Boom. Alright, so this is Lost Kingdom miniatures on the background picture here. I made that myself, not any bundle they offer. I just conglomerated a bunch of units and obviously amazingly placed my face where the two core units go. So yeah, high five on that one. I'm a freaking champion. Anyways, there are no models available made by Games Workshop at this moment, or probably for the foreseeable future. There are ways you can go about getting the authentic ones. eBay and a recaster, those are the two ways to get the ones that maybe GW used to produce. Obviously with eBay, there's a lot of issues, and we're going to talk about it now. To beware of. When you go on eBay, I've seen a lot of people passing off recasted stuff that they bought for like $100 or $50, or even some of these units are like $20 at some recaster sites. And they will pretend that it's actual Forge World and charge $180 a unit. And unfortunately, I see this stuff sell and it doesn't look like Forge World resin. So how do we combat that? There's a couple things you can ask. Obviously, if a person bought these a long time ago, they might not have proof of purchase. But for me, my account goes all the way back to 8th edition Fantasy Battles when I bought the Orc command set. And you can ask for proof of purchase. Also, to Forge World has always given me these little authentication slips where, like, it's someone approved of the packaging and the model, quality assurance, and this was normally to cover their butt in case something came and messed up. They had the name of whoever checked your order and probably reprimanded them, but you can always ask for that. If they can't provide either of those two, or they give you some story like, I got it off a friend but it looks authentic, don't waste your money on it. Just go to a recaster. Don't waste your money on people on eBay that are charging an arm and a leg. Go and just ask around, type it in. You'll find some people that are selling it. As far as recasters go, it's a really touchy thing. I know a lot of people don't really get down on them too much. I don't see any issue when the company no longer produces the models. I'll see more of an issue about it, like if you're deliberately ripping off the company maybe, but it's a morality thing that I'm not here to get into. I'm just telling you the options. You can go into a recaster. I've seen them have almost everything, if not even the limited edition models in their showcase. They're fairly affordable. You can get down on them. I'm not going to be mentioning any recasters on here because I don't want them to get freaking reported or destroyed. I don't use them, but it's not my job to go around putting people into plights that they don't deserve to be in. Those are some options that you're able to go through on your own. Now, this is the one I do here, is 3D printing, right? Now, I have a couple 3D printers. I have Harlot Mage Pro. Really fantastic printer, prints really quick, beautiful sculpts, barely any freaking lines on it. Really love it. I'll be painting up a Chaos Dwarf here on the channel probably sometime this weekend and having it up by the week. I recommend it. These guys right here, Lost Kingdom Miniatures, these are the Chaos Dwarves I use. Until Avatars of War, maybe one day they do a couple. I don't know. I would like to see it. But, you know, if they're watching, you should check out some Chaos Dwarves. I don't know. I would freaking love to see their take on it personally. 3D printing has a bit of a learning curve, so if you don't 3D print already and you're like, I'm going to buy a printer and just print an army, good for you, do it. I recommend starting off with like an Elegoo. They tend to be, and they have a little bit of a weird thing with leveling, but I'm personally glad I'm with an Elegoo Mars. It really helped me hammer out all my mistakes. So when I moved up to the High-Lit Mage Pro, I kind of had all the kinks worked out and I had a good understanding of what I was doing with 3D printing. Some things I will mention is that it is a bit of a messy process, and you can find people that actually have distributing licenses from companies like Lost Kingdom Miniature on Etsy or even eBay, where they're selling the models printed already. You could always go through that option too. I've done that just to kind of see their quality, and they have some really good quality where they're even like more dialed in than I am. Those are some of your options. Now, when 3D printing for yourself, I notice that a lot of people may have that learning curve when it comes to failed prints, right? That's why Lost Kingdom Miniatures is on here, because they offer all their files supported for the most part, or non-supported. You just have to go, as you see here, I'm going to scroll down, and when you go to purchase a file, it'll say supports or no supports. Make sure you click the supported option and you won't be let down. I have yet to have any of their supports really mess with my printer or mess with any of that. They do a great job, and I barely have any failed prints. Now, one thing that I actually really saw from the community on a Facebook page I'm a part of, I'll put the link to that in the description too. I saw this guy sculpt some Chaos Dwarves out of the dwarf models, and I thought, boom, how freaking awesome is that? If that's the route you want to take, go to all your homies that maybe play Slaves of Darkness, have Chaos stuff, trade bits, buy bits, ask them if they're going to throw them away. Shave the horns off the helmets, maybe put them on there, sculpt a little bit of fur with some green stuff, really rudimentary things, and you can make a really unique Chaos Dwarf army all on your own. And that's something that I would suggest too if you plan on hobbying in a games workshop, but we'll talk about that when we get closer to it. Now, I want to talk about the pros and cons to the Chaos Dwarves coming up. Now, obviously, the biggest pro to me is free freaking rules. Now, it is a legacy army. They're not going to be getting much support in the future, but that doesn't dampen my spirits because it's a really cool army. And regardless of if I win every game or not, it is just fun. I've had the most fun of all my games putting these dudes on the tabletop. There's a breakdown I've done personally on this channel for the Chaos Dwarves PDF. Some of my opinions probably have changed since that was one of the first ones I did, and I'll revisit that later on down the line. But top right corner, if you want to kind of get the army breakdown for them done that I did. You know, so on top of the free rules, you have a ton of varieties and multiple ways you can play this army. Chaos Dwarves are known for enslaving kind of like orcs, goblins. I think they're actually rumored to have created the black orcs through magic because the other orcs kind of weren't efficient enough, which kind of bit them in the butt because I'm pretty sure Grimgor had a couple of choice words to say to them. But anyways, there's a lot of things you can do with this army and a lot of really cool combinations you can run. If you want to run a slave-driven army with hobgoblins, black orcs, freaking hobgoblin wolf riders, goblin bolt throwers, and just elite units of Chaos Dwarves, and just feed your goblins into the meat grinder, you can do that. If you want to run heavy cavalry with bull centaurs, you can do that. If you want to run demon-like monsters in there with the G'day Fireborn, you can do that. There's nothing you can't do legitimately with this army. Magic, shooting, artillery, demons, heavy cav, light cav, orcs, goblins, you name it, you can do it. And for me, I love the Chaos Warriors. I like orcs and goblins, and this is like that happy medium for me. So if you have an orcs and goblins army, you know, you can take some of that stuff and kind of convert it into there. If you're running goblins, you can run them as hobgoblins. You can also buy these models here, which are technically hobgoblins from GW, but I digress. There's a lot that you can do in this range that's really freaking sweet. We're going to move into like the leniency on the minis. So there is really no standard of what people run for Chaos Dwarves. Yeah, I see people with Forge World, I see people with Lost Kingdom, I see people with other types of models, I see people with the old pewter, like, what is it, 3rd edition models with the big goofy hats. And honestly, I think they're pretty cool. They're okay. They're a little derpy, but hey, you know what? To each their own. You can do whatever you want with this army and really truly make it yours. And when it comes to building an army for me, one thing that I really look for is how do I personalize it to make me get sucked into the painting of it, because you're going to be sitting in your butt putting a few hours, a couple, probably 20, 30, 40 hours into your army to really put something beautiful on the tabletop. And for me, I wanted to express kind of what I want them to look like. And because there's no GW models, you can go and do anything you want, do any take you want. You can sculpt, you can 3D print, you can Forge World, you can mix and match everything you want to do, which is really freaking sweet and something that kind of keeps me captivated on the Chaos Dwarves. And on top of it, rolling from that into it, lots of inspiration. I will scroll through like Pinterest, and only because it shows up in the Google searches. I'll show up in Google, the Warhammer communities pages, the Old World pages, Chaos Dwarf pages. There is so much stuff you can take from other artists on top of the Total War stuff when it comes to painting your models how you want to paint them or sculpting them how you want to sculpt them. So take advantage of that, have a lot of fun. When I was painting mine, I was listening to the Go Trek and Felix. I got all the way to Orc Slayer. Freaking do that, a lot of fun. You won't regret it. Now the cons, there's not really a lot of cons I have for it. Maybe it's because I got rose tinted glasses and I like the army, maybe. But the ones that we're able to come up with, like the cost for purity, right? If you're going to go and you're like, dude, I got the expendable income, I want to just buy legit Forge World models and pay them prices on the internet, that would be, I guess, a con for me. But I'm guessing if you're going through to do that, you already are aware of like what you're getting yourself into. So it may not be a con for you. It could not be allowed in tournaments, which is something I've seen a couple people get turned away from. There are, however, a few things we can do to circumvent that. And not just tournaments either. Some independent retailers might not let you play in the store if you're running 3D printed or third-party miniatures, even though they're not supported. There's a couple ways we can kind of get around that. First and foremost, whenever you're bringing a proxy or anything 3D printed to someone's place of business where they make money and they support themselves, I always call ahead or ask before I put anything on the table. I say, hey, this is my goal. This is what I have. Are you cool with it? Most of the time I run into it, the biggest thing they ask is to make sure that my army's painted so it doesn't blatantly look like I just 3D printed a bunch of crap and threw it on the table. But you need to go out and do your due diligence and do the respectful thing and ask ahead of time. Don't just show up, put your models on the table, and then act like a victim when they get mad that you did that. You have to be respectful, right? For them, they have trade relationships with Games Workshop. There's policies and everything else under the sun. And if they say no, it's probably for a good reason, not because they hate 3D printing. They are dependent and beholden to the company as well to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to keep their license as a seller. Now, one of the other things I've run into is like a 25% rule. Some people will allow 25% of your army to be 3D printed. And where the Chaos Dwarves really thrive in that is that you can do that now. Black Orcs are a core choice if you take a Black Orc Big Boss in your army. If you take a Hobgoblin Khan on a Wolf, you can take some Wolf Riders with them. You can run Hobgoblin Throat Cutters as your core. You can run Goblin Bolt Throwers. All of those are available in the Orcs and Goblins range. And then you can just take the last 25% of your army, throw a freaking Demon Smith Prophet in there, and throw in some Chaos Dwarves and you're golden. You know, so there's that. And if it really truly comes down to it, go to find a recaster, get the Forge World Chaos Dwarves, and go through it that way. Now, one big thing is don't expect to play this army probably period in GW stores. Now, much like the local gaming stores, they're going to be very, very strict. And the fact that their company or Forge World no longer offers their models, they can turn you away just kind of based on that because they can't offer to sell it to anybody. Now, I don't know how local GWs are nowadays. I know that it's really dependent on the manager, but I do know that when I was playing the Heresy back in the day, a lot of shops did not like Forge World. They didn't like it in their store. They couldn't sell it. They couldn't make their numbers off it. And that's understandable. They have a job to do and they have to get paid and they have to do their job. But just be aware that it might and probably will not be allowed at a GW store, even if you do have the authentic Forge World. Again, probably keep it to the same policy. Call ahead. Ask before you decide to get into this army. You know, say, hey, I'm going to get I have Forge World Chaos Dwarves. Can I play in the shop with them? If they say yes, cool. If not, you know, maybe look into doing the route we talked about before where you get some of the Orcs and Goblin stuff and put it into your army because then they can showcase people buying into it. Moving on. Key units for beginners. This is a disclaimer here, okay? Look, I am not the freaking go-to on how to play Chaos Dwarves. I am playing this entire army because it's Chaos Dwarves, it's dope, I enjoy painting them, and that is why. It's been the only army I've been able to paint fun and have fun with and not pull my eyes out while I'm doing it. So this is straight up taste-based. What you're going to see here is 996 points of units, allowing you to go up to 1,200 points of magical items. I didn't put any magical items on any of these profiles that I made for you guys to see, mostly because I don't want to influence what you take, and two, I believe if you're a truly beginner player, to just learn the mechanics of the army, get that down, and then take that next step into all the magical items and banners and stuff that you can do. So, my very first unit I'm going to take is a Demon Smith Sorcerer. I make it a level 2. It helps with dispelling and helps with casting. And I give it Demonology, and I will almost always trade out one of my spells with the Curse of Hashut, which is an army special rule. It's a magic missile. You can target characters. It's pretty decent, and I like putting the heat on my opponent with it. I also take Nefata Bombs because you can pitch them when you get charged. And you'll find this dude chilling with my Hellshot Blunderbusses because I don't want to draw fire or any type of ire towards my infantry blocks. I'd rather it soak it up with my Blunderbuss guys that aren't going to be getting into combat, most likely. Like I said, level 2 really helps me with dispelling and casting. Adding that extra 2 to your casting value, it's a big deal. I would say level 2 and level 3 wizards are where to stay at. And the reason why I took a Demon Smith Sorcerer, not a Sorcerer Prophet, is because 185 points within a 1,000 point limit is a poop load of points to spend. And I wanted to include the next model, which is Infernal Seneschal. So my Infernal Seneschal, I upgrade to a BSB, give him a great weapon, call it a day. If you're looking for a good generic war banner to learn the game with, I would suggest personally the war banner. Adding +1 to combat res is a good thing to have. So I wouldn't leave home without it personally. Next, my Infernal Guard. So Infernal Guard have some weapon options and upgrades they can take. I leave mine hand weapon shield, kind of keep them cheap. I don't take the black shard armor because all it really offers is a 5-up ward save against flaming attacks. And while flaming attacks are a bit of an abundance, unless you're going to be going up against the army with just a poop load of them, I wouldn't put them on your unit. It eats up too many points. Hand weapon shield, the way to go, and when they have heavy armor with a shield, makes them 4-up armor save. Run these guys 6x4, 6 wide, 4 deep. You'll have a couple extra missing slots, but hey, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're going to eat the charge, you're probably not going to have much of a front rank to attack with. So try to be a little bit more liberal with them in the first turn, and then be more reserved turn 2 and 3, and try to get that charge off on your terms, because you're going to want to hit them and try to wipe out as much of that front rank as you can. They're not squishy, but they are points heavy, so every Chaos Dwarf you do lose is going to cost a little bit room for panic. And then also I run a unit of tail Hellshot Blunderbusses, like I was saying, with my Sorcerer Prophet in there. They get D3 shots, range 12. They don't suffer a negative modifier for range, and they don't suffer the negative modifier for stand and shoot. They have the keyword Volley Fire, which is nice, but I'm pretty much just hoping my front rank makes it into combat. They also have a sweet special rule with the Hail Shot where if you have a unit of 20 or more, you get to reroll once to wound as long as they maintain 20 dwarves. Now, I tested it, and the first thing people do, because they're not dumb, I think they're buttholes for it, but who am I? They will dwindle you down to that 19 mark just so they don't get that reroll once, and it's a waste of points at that point. So, and it has to be 1 unit, not 2 units of 10. Next, Infernal Ironsworn. I took these dudes solely because Lost Kingdom Miniatures just did such a dope scope on it. I just couldn't afford to not take them. I'll run a unit of 10. I'll go 6 wide, throwing the BSB in this unit. I'll keep these guys in the middle of my army to kind of get that radius going. Infernal Ironsworn are really interesting. They have full plate shield, putting them at a 3-up armor save, and they have an ensorcelled weapons keyword. Now, I was corrected on my Warriors of Chaos video, and rightfully so, because ensorcelled weapons only applies to a hand weapon. Now, with that hand weapon, you get magical attacks, and you get to add AP to your weapon. So I would keep these dudes hand weapon, shield, go command, drop your champion, and just keep the banner bearer. That would be personally the way I do it. Now they also have a special rule called shield wall. So rather than giving ground once per game, you can or rather than fall back in good order, you can choose to give ground, allowing you to move 2 inches out of combat, keeping your facing and everything. Like I said, it can only be done once per game, making these guys just a little bit more resilient though. And then lastly, I took the Death Shrieker rocket with Hellbound because why not? It's got 2 types of payloads. One's a 5-inch blast, one's a 3-inch blast. One's disgusting, one's just gonna dwindle out little numbers out of people. Anything that's toughness 3, go for the big template. Anything that's above that, go for the little one and just try to do damage. When you take Hellbound, you get a lot of really cool rules. It's a 30-point upgrade, but you get Fear. If you already cause Fear, you get Terror. Beautiful thing. It gives you magical attacks, and on top of all of that, you get to reroll a scatter die or 1 artillery die. However, if you misfire, you must subtract 1 from your misfire roll. I made these cards, misfire charts on this thing right there. Feel free to screenshot if you want. There you go. Next, my goal when playing the Chaos Dwarves. You can see the bullet points here. Fun, support, shooting magic, try not to lose bad. I think we can all relate to trying not to lose when we play our game, so don't be laughing at me if that's just going through your head. So fun. First and foremost, the main goal with this army that I'm playing is just to have a good time with it. Now, because it's something that's no longer supported, I'm kind of able to 3D print and take the leniency to take the risk of printing units that maybe I wouldn't have bought to see if they're fun on the tabletop. And I won't do that with a lot of GW armies because you're paying so many points, but also money for these models that it kind of can be a little soul crushing to buy something, build it, paint it, and then realize you just threw away $80 on a unit that sucks. But with these, because you can 3D print and because they're not supported, I've been having fun just running a bunch of different combinations of things, which is why I recommend the list I put in there. It's not the best, but it's a lot of fun for me to play on the table. With support, I'll run my 2 units of infantry, my Infernal Ironsworn will be in the middle. I'll run my guard somewhere to the left or right, and then I'll run my blunderbusses on the opposite side of where I put my Infernal Guard with hand weapon shield. For me, I want to draw the fire away from my infantry and kind of throw it onto my artillery and onto my blunderbusses, which tends to be what people do. That's why I like Cursive as Should. Throwing a spell directly at an enemy character kind of makes them look at that and say, I don't want that to ever hit me and destroy my dude. So they'll go out of their way to kind of focus on that unit while my heavy hitters move into position to hit them and hopefully destroy them. And with that, segueing into the perfect part here for shooting and magic. Magic's really good. I like demonology. There's a lot of really flavorful spells in there, but most importantly, I really do like the Curse of a Shit. It's come in clutch once in a while where it's wiped out a character, and that's cool. I appreciate it for what it is. With the shooting, blunderbusses having D3 shots at 12-inch range, it's kind of disgusting. And you roll a D3, I believe, for each model, which is even kind of nastier. I mean, you can get all ones, but I mean, it's mostly pretty even. And with that, that's why I also packed the Nafata bombs on the Sorcerer Prophet in that stand and shoot. You just throw that smoke bomb, and freaking see what happens. But that's pretty much what I do. I'll focus my Death Shrieker rocket on anything I want to thin down people's numbers on to screw their rank bonuses over. If you're going up against anything toughness 3 or you want to really thin things down, use the big payload. If you need something that has heavy armor like knights, use a little payload and freaking crumble them. And last but not least, my final goal is to just not get tabled when I show up. That's I like I said, I think that's everyone's goal. I don't if you show up to get tabled, raise your hand. I don't, but I think it's mostly don't get tabled with my friend list. Don't just go out there and break everyone's wiener and laugh in their faces. I table the crap out of them. I just like having fun with this army, and I think that's the biggest thing for me. Now, heading this little PowerPoint presentation for us here. There's a lot of things that I see people getting kind of upset about with the Chaos Dwarves, and I would just recommend to pay it no heed and enjoy yourself. You're not going to get any more support. They're probably not going to be bringing these models back in the future, but that shouldn't discourage you from really playing and enjoying this army for what it is. It's a fun, gimmicky, goofy army that's based loosely off the Byzantine Empire. Maybe the Assyrians, I don't know, maybe just guessing. But it's just something that's really fun that you can have a ton of fun painting, a ton of fun playing, lots of play styles. Enjoy yourself. Don't let any of the other stuff get to you. Don't try to get overly competitive with the army. Enjoy it for what it is. A free legacy PDF that you can have the time of your life with. Everybody, it's been the Tabletop Tyrant. I hope you have an outstanding weekend. Peace.